Welcome to Pody Says, Petty Revenge, for all the stories of small victories over those who've wronged someone. A coworker calls me out for a small mistake, so I put her mistake on display. To start, this woman is great as a person. As a coworker, she is the worst. Let's call her Regina. When I started at this place a year ago, Regina was to train me on an aspect of our job. I had to ask her to slow down and repeat herself several times because nothing made sense. Keep in mind, I've worked in the industry for 8 years longer than her. My boss was able to explain it clearly in 5 minutes, and I've never had an issue. Shortly after starting, I noticed Regina would CC our boss on every email she sent me. Regina would email me several times a day, calling me out for problems she noticed, always CCing our boss. But I was always in the right, and my boss would back me up. I emailed Regina, only Regina, and said I felt like she was trying to get me in trouble. I felt disrespected, and I was wondering what I could do to improve. She replied, CCing our boss, telling me that if I felt that way, it was my own doing. Got it. My entire team works from home, so our boss has put people in charge of certain things so one person has control. One of my tasks is issuing documents for signature via the very popular system we all know. Basically, my team sends me an email that says, send these documents to X, Y, and Z, and I get to it. Good news, Regina only copies our boss on super important documents, which I understand. The other day, Regina sends me a request, and I failed to copy her when it was issued. Fixed in under a minute and did not cause any issue, but she still made a big deal about it over email and in our team meeting. Next request I get from her has, be sure to double check your work and all people are copied as detailed below. This pissed me off. The funny thing was, she didn't attach the documents I needed to send, nor tell me where the docs were located for me to get them myself. I reply asking for the docs and she sends them stating, these are the final approved versions. Except they're wrong. First, we send PDFs, not Word docs. She sent me Word docs. Second, the formatting was atrocious. Signature blocks cover 4 pages when they should be on 1. Vendor name and address were put into different tables, so it made no sense. So I sent it as is. Of course, my boss is copied on this, and actually has to sign the doc, and she is not happy with the state of this document. I replied to my boss with the email from Regina saying this doc was approved by our boss, and with my other projects, I didn't QC like I normally do, which is not expected of me, but I normally do to prevent issues down the road. Boss replies to Regina and CCs me laying into her. That Bat Kevin is not to fix her mistakes as he has his own job to do. This was also reiterated in our next team meeting, and I could see how angry my boss was. She and I had a one-on-one, and she said she was not upset with me. The next request I got from Regina was incredibly detailed and had everything I needed in the right format. ETA, lots of comments about Regina not being a good person. I suppose y'all are correct. The times I've seen her outside of work, she has been pleasant, which is why I wrote what I did. Also, my boss is very aware of the situation with Regina and I, and has taken steps to ensure our work doesn't overlap much, sometimes unavoidable. Boss has her own issues with Regina. I'm not privy to the details, but boss has made a few comments about how Regina is, and that she'll never change. Our first comment comes from Yuriamu Busujima. A few companies ago, this weirdo got hired to a completely different department, but was CC'd in most emails sent. He felt the need to repeatedly reply that my emails were too long, too detailed, and too wordy. I replied back to him with all the other directors CC'd that were also on the original email and told him that it was not his business to be reviewing my reports or giving me feedback. Fortunately, my operations director, who I directly reported to, replied in the same email reiterating the same thing. His stupid little ego got deflated and he didn't bother me again. Next comment from NickIs84. Regina needed to be taken down several pegs, and it looks like your boss has just done that. Congratulations on playing the game better. DOP replies, my boss takes no shit. Probably my favorite part of this job. If I mess up, you better believe I find out. But she tells me in a constructive way. It is awesome. Coworker took my night shift napping reclining chair, so I removed the cord so she can never recline on it. Then I took her old napping chair so she couldn't go back to it. On the night shift, we nap. There's nothing to really do from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. I always would nap in this one area. Everyone on their shift has their designated spot that they always go to. No one would use that chair because it wasn't reclining correctly. I looked up how to fix it, and it was reclining properly again. The next time I work, I see my coworker bag and blanket on that chair. I asked her when she was leaving the spot since that's not her normal spot. not even thinking she was trying to sleep there. She goes, "I'm watching a movie." I found another spot that night. The following day, the same thing. 3 days straight. I'm like, this bee really took my spot. So before she got in, I removed the cord I fixed it with and put it back in the upright position and was already sitting in her old spot. I would come in slightly early every time she worked to claim her old spot. Slappy Handstrong says, "I need a job where the biggest issue is someone in my napping chair." The OP replies, laughing my ass off, "Apply to a group home facility." Hoarder59 chimes in, "What kind of job allows a planned nap?" Nigerian Princess says, "I used to have a job like this. On the night shift, we had to be there in case of an emergency, but if there were no emergencies that night, we could easily go an entire 12-hour shift just waiting for the phone to ring. We would take turns napping. So one of us would get the first 6 hours, and the other would get the second 6 hours. If there was something going on, we'd both stay awake. Won't pay me what I'm worth? Enjoy Black Friday." Alright, so this is from several years ago when I was working at Best Buy, and I've likely already posted the story elsewhere in r/Tales from Retail, but I figure it warrants a retelling here. Background. I worked in the phone department at Worst Buy for about 3 years. I came from a Radio Shack before this job, so I knew how to sell phones. Over those 3 years, everyone I had started working with who already knew how to sell phones moved on to greener pastures. Before I knew it, 2 years in, I had trained everyone on the team how to sell phones, including my direct manager and assistant manager. It wasn't too bad. I liked the people I worked with. My manager basically made me pseudo-manager in his stead because he wasn't really willing to learn the intricacies of phone carriers. So I basically got the final call on how to handle difficult situations with customers or carriers. But then the penny dropped. I was conversing with a new coworker I trained. "So, how are you liking selling phones, bud?"
It's complicated and kind of hard, but at least now I see why we make what we do.
Make what we do? What do you mean, make what we do? How much are they starting you off at? Keep in mind, this is a brand new employee. It's literally his first job.
Oh, $15 an hour.
What? I was making only $14.50 an hour, and I had already worked there for 3 years. So I immediately start looking into my job role. I found on the company website that the pay scale for my job role is $13 an hour to $17 an hour in my area. The next day, I asked my direct manager. He apologizes and explains that he doesn't get to directly change pay scales that much, and that that's a decision for the general manager. So I go talk to the general manager. "Hey, general manager, I was looking at the pay scale for my job, and I wanted to see if we could raise my pay to the upper end of the pay scale, $17 an hour, since I had been there for 3 years and have trained every one of my coworkers on how to sell phones, despite that not being my job role." The GM's eyes narrow. Bailey the nerd, why don't you walk with me?" Note, I'm not going to post the full conversation here because he spent the next 15 minutes walking me in a loop around the store explaining to me that no, he would not give me the raise. Truth be told, I tuned out the majority of the conversation after that very firm no, but I did pick up the following excuses. 1, it wasn't in the budget. 2, I hadn't been at that store long enough. 3, that's not how it works. 4, it wouldn't be fair to coworkers with the same amount of tenure. I was seeing red, and very nearly quit on the spot. But my cooler head won. I am not someone who's going to go out where there's such a prime opportunity coming up. You see, this conversation happened in late October. Now, tell me, class, what holiday comes next month? I start my job searching. Eventually, I find another job selling phones for $17 an hour plus commission. By the way, that job sucked worse, so don't sell phone, kids. I bide my time, and 15 days out from Black Friday, I walk up to the GM and hand him a note.
"What's this?"
It's my 2-week notice.
"Your 2-week notice?
Yep,
2 weeks from Black Friday?"
2 weeks from Thanksgiving, actually, but who's counting? He retreated into his office. I didn't get the begging or panic that I was hoping for, but oh well, at least I'm getting out. The days roll by, and I get more lax in my job, but still help my coworkers when they need it, because I loved all of them. 2 days before my last day, GM approaches me.
"So, Bailey the nerd, I was wondering, is there any way we can convince you to stay working here?"
Probably not, but feel free to shoot your shot.
"Well, I was thinking about it. I think you're definitely worth that raise to $17 an hour that you were asking about."
Wow, how gracious of you. But I'm afraid you'll have to do better than that. My next job is $17 an hour plus commission.
"Well, what could I do to keep you?"
Well, you could have appreciated the work I put in before I found a better paying job.
"Right."
Fallout, their mobile sales were a mess on Black Friday. While all of my coworkers that I taught were fully capable of selling phones by themselves, they'd get confused or caught up on the intricacies of when things went wrong. If a phone number got stuck at a port, if the wrong SIMs were scanned, etc. They relied on me for all of that. Most of the phones that ended up getting sold were sold to resellers or fraud customers, which causes chargebacks for the carrier. The mobile department has probably its worst month ever after I left. Gudemeister5 says, "You said the right thing when he came back 2 days before you left, but you should have started with, 'Walk with me,' and walked him around the store explaining why you wouldn't stay." The OP replies, "I wish I had. I was probably more infuriated than I ever had been during those laps around the store." Rock10009 says, "Never take the offer of a pay increase after you give your notice. Your manager will always resent you, and they will find a way to fuck you over or overwork you until you really quit for good." I upvote downvote says, "I had a similar thing happen, except I was the only one in the store who could do math besides the store manager, and therefore the only one besides him who could manage the money. Despite being a supervisor and working 12-hour days, they still hired new people with a higher starting wage. I quit the day before Christmas and left that shift to the person who, despite being paid higher and only being there 2 weeks, didn't know how to use a calculator. The manager was giving me only 8 hours in between shifts at that point, so I hope he enjoyed coming in on Christmas morning to fix everything."
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe for more and give us a thumbs up.